This myth is a subtle weapon in the fight against Tsar Nicholas II. On the one hand, the Tsar is described as an ideal father, and on the other hand, he is described as a bad ruler. But if you study the history of the entire period of his reign, you can be amazed at how much good he did for the Russian Empire in the situation he found himself in. Tsar Nicholas was not ready to become a Tsar. He could not have imagined that in 1894 his father, Alexander III, would die. The heir was young and confused, but soon he was able to firmly take over the government. Tsar Nicholas II ruled for more than 20 years while being surrounded by unreliable people, including his high-ranking senior relatives. Under the last Tsar, the earnings of ordinary workers increased, crime decreased, the number of death sentences was reduced, the export of grain and eggs to Europe increased, and free medicine developed. Oldenburg wrote about him.
The emperor also had a persistent and tireless will to carry out his plans. He did not forget them, constantly returned to them, and often, in the end, achieved his goal. A different opinion was widespread because the emperor, over his iron hand, had a velvet glove. The softness of his address and his friendliness created for him in wide sections of the country a reputation as a benevolent but weak ruler, easily susceptible to all sorts of, often contradictory suggestions. Meanwhile, such an idea was infinitely far from the truth. The outer shell was taken for the essence. Emperor Nicholas II, who listened attentively to the most diverse opinions, ultimately acted on his discretion and the conclusions that had formed in his mind, often directly contrary to the advice given to him. But they looked in vain for any secret inspirers of the Tsar's decisions. No one was hiding behind the scenes. It can be said that Emperor Nicholas II himself was the main behind-the-scenes influence of his reign.
The New Year's edition of the Vienna newspaper New Freie Presse for 1910 included the memoirs of the former president of the French Republic, Émile Loubet, who spoke of Tsar Nicholas II in the following way.
They say about the Russian emperor that he is accessible to various influences. This is deeply untrue. The Russian emperor himself implements his ideas. He defends them with constancy and great force. Under the mask of timidity, the Tsar has a strong soul and a courageous heart, unshakably faithful.
Admiral Hopman stated.
At first glance, the Tsar seems timid, but then you realize that he is serious and thoughtful. He always looks benevolent, but for a man, perhaps too soft. But internally, he is much more unyielding than he appears to others.
Winston Churchill said about the Tsar.
In March, the Tsar was on the throne. The Russian Empire and the Russian army held out. The front was secured, and victory was undeniable. According to the superficial fashion of our time, the Tsarist system is usually interpreted as a blind, rotten tyranny, incapable of anything. But an analysis of the 30 months of war with Germany and Austria should correct these facile ideas. We can measure the strength of the Russian Empire by the blows it suffered, by the disasters it survived, by the inexhaustible forces it developed, and by the recovery of which it was capable. Why deny Nicholas II this ordeal? Why not give him honor for this? The selfless impulse of the Russian armies that saved Paris in 1914, overcoming a painful, shell-free retreat, slow recovery, Brusilov's victories, Russia entering the 1917 campaign undefeated, stronger than ever. Didn't he have a part in all this?
Anna Virubova recalled.
With all his being, the emperor loved his motherland and would never have thought of sacrificing himself for the good of Russia. It is painful to remember his trust in everyone, in particular, and in the entire Russian people. Too many worries were placed on one person. In addition, the ministers often not only did not carry out his will but acted in the name of the sovereign without his knowledge or consent, which he found out only later.
But political will must be assessed, of course, not by words but by deeds. These are some of his achievements, which clearly show that he was not a weak ruler at all. The Tsar provided Russia with the fastest industrial growth rates in the world and internal economic stability, ensuring the fastest growth of state budget revenues in the world. He initiated the launch of a universal education program, which resulted in school construction expanding at a record pace. He ensured a stable reduction in the population's mortality rate, simultaneously contributing to an increase in the standard of living and the development of free medical care. The Tsar showed toughness and determination in suppressing the 1905 revolution, and as commander of the army in the World War, he achieved a critical blow to Germany by 1917. the very fact of overthrowing him is not a sign of weakness. A person who goes alone against everyone will be overthrown in any case. There is also a common misconception that during the February Revolution, Tsar Nicholas II did nothing and was afraid to take any harsh measures. But this is not true at all. On February 25, 1917, during the riots that broke out in Petrograd, having learned about what had happened, the Tsar did not hesitate to transmit a telegram to General Kabalov, who was responsible for the security of the capital, in which he ordered an end to the disturbances in the capital, which he considered unacceptable amid the war with Germany and Austria. However, this order was not carried out, and as a result, the Tsar himself had to go to rebellious Petrograd, where conspirators intercepted him at the Dnu station on the way. It is unfair to remember the Tsar as a weak ruler. It is time to change our view of him. Tsar Nicholas II once said,
"If you see me so calm, I have an unshakable faith that the fate of Russia, my own, and that of my family, is in the hands of the Lord. Whatever happens, I bow to his will."